You know that one song you can't get enough of? Chances are it was made with a sample from Splice. Explore top packs made by your favorite producers, sketch out song ideas in seconds with Create Mode, and dive into a sample catalog that's so deep, it's dangerous. Find out why Splice is the industry's not-so-secret secret. Visit splice.com and try for free today. Welcome to the Fader interview. I'm Alex Robert Ross, editorial director of The Fader. If you've listened to any electronic pop music in the last 2 decades that's even slightly interested in challenging the listener, chances are that it's indebted to Karin Dreijer. Along with their brother, Olaf, Karin formed The Knife, releasing their self-titled debut in 2001, with each subsequent album celebrating the messy, rapturous, and uniquely human process of reinvention. Known for their audacious costumes that hid their identities and a deep interest in injecting academic ideas into their music, The Knife felt like an evolution in every way. 2013's urgent and conscience-rattling Shaking the Habitual, the duo's final gift before they went their separate ways, outlined the contours of a better world beyond the music industry. With The Knife finished, Karin turned their attention to Fever Ray, their solo project. The act's self-titled debut arrived in 2009 and found Dreijer ruminating on marriage, parenthood, and domesticity's effects on the soul. But Karin's marriage dissolved in the years leading up to 2017's Plunge. In contrast to the monochrome hues of the previous release, Plunge was a nosedive into queer sexuality and politics, using club music as its diving board. Vulnerable without ever compromising on its demands for dignity and a sustainable future, Fever Ray's sophomore record clearly articulated the stakes while pulling the listener towards the dance floor. On their new album, Radical Romantics, Dreijer is more seasoned, reflective, and assured, despite the constantly shifting ground beneath their feet. The subject matter is still heady. In a press statement, Dreijer says that they want to examine the myth of love and how to embody its best principles. As ever, they spin their abundance of questions into poetry that can be surrounded by catchy experimental pop, searing goth-tinged electro, and club music refracted through a crystal plucked from a meteorite. Dreijer reunites with their brother, Olaf, on 4 songs, and enlists Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross of Nine Inch Nails on 2 others. Crucially though, these tracks don't amount to a Knife reunion or a Nine Inch Nails feature, but a bolstering of Dreijer's own unique vision. Last week, Karin Dreijer joined The Fader's Jordan Darville from the mountains of Sweden to discuss the new project, making art about love and radical solutions to everyday problems.
So I wanted to start off by talking about a film that I saw that really resonated with me. It's Ken Russell's The Devils. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
I watched it just after listening to Radical Romantics for the first time, and this idea of the myth of love was swirling around in my head, and that film captured it in a very, very subversive way that I felt like resonated with your album. And I was wondering if you believe if art that looks at love from whichever angle, if it has to challenge an institution in order to be truly thorough.
I think if you look at the normative way of looking at love, I think the normative way, how a romance myth is being told. And I mean, I can only speak from a culture where I was brought up and how we were fed as when growing up, what love was about. And I mean, for me, I think it was sort of a revelation when I read Bell Hooks' All About Love, when she talks about love as a verb. It's an action, that it's something that we do. That was a totally new way for me to understand what it is, to at least have a definition. I didn't really understand. I think I thought of love as a feeling more. It is weird because so many institution are built on this idea of love, like marriage and how to have children, and it's a very strange way to build society on when you don't have a definition of what it really is that you're talking about.
It feels like to that end, Radical Romantics is a bit of a case study in new ways of both thinking about love and feeling about love. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I guess so, but it doesn't have so much to do with romantic love, I think. In the end, I think it has more to do with like how to exist as a human being and how to exist as a queer person, to find a space where you can feel free.
It kind of surprised me a little bit to hear this idea of love come up so frequently when this album was being discussed, because I feel like that's something that you've never really shied away from, both as Fever Ray and your work in The Knife. It's something that's you've done a lot of very deep, very thorough dives in through your art. I was hoping you could just nail down for me a little bit, just like where you saw the pivot point, that shift in focus that came with Radical Romantics.
I think it has been a very like long ongoing process, and I have worked with this album for like, I don't know, 3 years maybe. It is just something that has developed, and it is sort of what I felt was important to work with, to write about. But I mean, this old cliche that like to be able to love somebody, you have to love yourself first and stuff like that. It's hard to accept, but I think it's sort of true. Like you sort of have to become sort of a friend to yourself, I think, to be able to exist at all first, but but to be able to have close relationships with people, that can be, I think, quite a hard thing to accept. And also when you finally do accept something like that, you sort of have to implement it to your life. I think that's something that I have been working with in music.
What was the most treacherous aspect of how you implemented this new worldview into your life? Like, how did that manifest?
I'm not saying that I know this and I have done this. This I think it's something to strive for. It's like an everyday work. It's an ongoing process, and I think if you've had difficulties with these things, it's something you have to like relearn and work on like every day for the rest of your life. It's nothing like you like just switch and then it's all good and you know how to do things. Unfortunately, it's something to strive for, I think. You're never finished. There is no goal. That's maybe the one of the hardest things, to exist like here and now and not be in the future and not be in the past. That is sort of the hardest challenge, I think.
Perhaps love is inherently anti-goal.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. It's like because it's something that you have to like do and work on every day. It's like your relationships, they require caring. It's really something you do in the present.
Being present, it's almost become a privilege in a way, finding ways of becoming present and making the time to do it.
Yes, that is also a thing. Like within capitalism, within patriarchy, I think it's really working the opposite way than being present. So that is sort of a challenge.
In that vein, you have taken your time between Fever Ray projects. There's never a sense that you're rushing them, or you're jumping from one thing to the next. They always feel like they're very lived in. And I was wondering if the production for Radical Romantics differed significantly in any standout ways from your previous two projects, especially with the the pandemic breaking?
No, I think I work exactly the same way as I always have. It takes so long time for me compared to how other people work, I think, to make music, because it's sort of like a research for myself at the same time to just find out. And I'm like, with every song, I'm trying so many different ways to do it, because I would like to find the best way to describe something and to tell a story or to tell something. So I record a lot of things that doesn't make it to the end. But I would say in the pandemic in Sweden, we didn't have a lockdown. I could still go to my studio every day, which was really nice. And that was a great thing, because, yeah, a lot of people had to work from home. So, but I could go to the studio. Olof was there. And there were some other people working there as well. So it was, I think, really great, because it didn't become this claustrophobic that I know happened to a lot of other people. I didn't have to push myself to finish anything, because nobody knew when it was supposed to end. So it was sort of peaceful, but also a very strange time, because it was so unusual and so different from any time before. But I think it gave me a possibility to sit down and feel a little bit more what I was doing.
You've been open in the past about your struggles with general anxiety disorder and panic attacks. Did the pandemic have any effect on those, or your mental health at all? Or
Yeah, I mean, I came home in 2018. I sort of hit the wall a bit. I was a bit exhausted. I could actually take care of myself much better during the pandemic. I couldn't travel, so I mean, I was at home, and yeah, it was like I could go to therapy. I also got a ADHD diagnosis. I had one slight one, a strange one, some years before, but that also, I think, really helped me to understand how I work, how I function, and what I need to be able to exist, and and also, like, what do I need to be able to continue working with what I do? Like, is it possible for me to go out touring again? I didn't really know.
so I wanted to talk a little bit about the visual identity that you have for Radical Romantics. I feel like with each new Fever Ray project, there's a degree of precision that goes into the visual identity, which is unrivaled, I think, in modern music. There's one new headshot that you have. The character's tie is just slightly out of its suit. It's just kind of like peeking out forward, and it's just off kilter, and everything else is quite symmetrical, and it feels very intentional and unsettling at the same time. So I was wondering, when you go into each new Fever Ray project, if you're planning these things out that meticulously.
Yes. I mean, I work with an old friend, Martin Falk, and we worked on the Plunge project as well. And we always collect images and film clips. And I think we are always in a communication about, like, what we feel is fun, what we feel is interesting, and like what should we do next time. Like a year before the album was finished, we started to try to capture what kind of world this is supposed to happen this time. I mean, we had so much, and then we try out things. We have this, like, testing of costumes and makeup, and so, I mean, we've done also for this album, we've done a lot of things that did not work out.
Are there any that stands out in your mind? The failed ideas?
I mean, we were very intrigued by death. There's like an old Ingmar Bergman film where like death comes up to a shore where they sit and play chess and stuff. We tried some of that, but it did not fit at all. But it's some stuff you just have to try out and look at, and you understand afterwards like what happened. I think we are both very interested in film, so we really like to do the video projects. I'm very happy because the music sort of, I feel like I'm very alone when making. Even, I mean, I do collaborate with other people, but I'm sort of the director and I have to make the decisions like when is a track finished. And then I'm very happy when the music is finished and I can go into the visual world because then I have Martin. It's so fun to work with him.
Yeah, it seemed like you were having a very good time with the music videos that we've seen so far from the project. My personal favorite, I think, is Candy. You spoke a little bit about death, and there's a scene where the office worker bee, they seem to be on the verge of an awakening in both of these videos, breaking out of this very sterile office setting and into something, you know, a bit more vivid.
Yeah, I think in Candy, the office person is like very, very impressed by this pink character who they feel like maybe now's the time that I find love. But I don't think that pink character is it's not a healthy situation. But it's like you can have this feeling when you feel very strongly for something or for somebody or for some kind of activity, but you sort of also know that it's not good for you. Like you sort of want to be eaten by this person, and it would be a good way to die. It's probably not the best choice in the long run.
I think that's an underrated side of love, the way it can turn into self-destruction very quickly. It doesn't have to be big fireworks self-destruction. It can be, you know, the very slow, sedentary, codependent kind of self-destruction as well.
Yes, I know of that one. But then it is not love. It's something else. That's also something that Bell Hooks wrote, like love and abuse can't coexist, which has brought a lot of clarity in my life. But that's also a weird thing with the romantic myth, that it's like it's okay to have this, like to have abuse within a relationship, for example. And like in France, I think they still have this crime of passion. Like you don't get as high a sentence if you kill somebody in some sort of passion drama situation. So I mean, it is still there. It's those ideas, like being obsessed, and there's so many very strange ways that is called love that I don't agree with.
Can I just hold you for a minute? Some things just ain't easy to repair. The person who came here was broken. Can you fix it?
In the song, What They Call Us, the lyrics, at certain points, it sounds like a message to the Fever Ray that released the self-titled project in 2009. I caught a couple of allusions to domestic life, but it's put in a different context. Like, you've learned how not to be stifled. So were you collapsing time a little bit on that song?
I mean, it does have elements of sort of domestic activities. Yeah, a little bit like the baking stuff that you're supposed to do to be a good parent. I still think it's fun to talk about the idea of how, I mean, I am a mother. I mean, my kids now are really, they are old. One is about to move out, and they don't require the same care as before. And this thing that I think has been ongoing for me for the last like 20 years, it's like, how am I really allowed to do what I do? Am I a good parent even if I go on tour? I will leave my kids. It is stuff that I have that has been with me for a very long time. I still don't really know how to do it, really, how to combine parenthood and work like the way I do it. The only ones who can tell is probably my kids. Maybe they will write like really horrible biographies about how I deserted them and stuff.
You just touched on a part of what makes the Fever Ray project so continually compelling. It's because each new project, in different ways, we witness Karin Dreijer learning about themselves. It's, the old boulder being pushed up the hill, back down again. Each new album, it feels like the boulders come back down again, but you've found a different new way of pushing it back up.
One thing that I've talked to Martin about a lot, because it's like both of us have been or are struggling a lot with anxiety. It can be so heavy that you feel like I can't really exist in this world. There is no room for what I'm feeling and how I function. Like, it doesn't work at all in the way that I'm being told how I'm supposed to function. When you have had those experiences, I think every time when it opens up and you feel it's going away for a little bit, and it is like the whole world is opening up, and there's so much, you feel so much freedom, you feel so much like just thankfulness of being alive. I think a lot of what we do is just to create spaces where we can feel free and where we can work, where we don't feel so like trapped or dysfunctional like we do in most other situations.
You've hinted in previous interviews that you believe that the club and dancing and movement are great ways to create those kinds of spaces of freedom and places where one doesn't feel so trapped. Are you still bringing that perspective to Radical Romantics?
Yes, I mean, for me, music has always been a great help to exist, to feel free. I mean, that is something I strive for. I would love to be able to create such spaces like when we go on tour. But at the same time, there's so much that I can't control about the room. I can't really say that about like clubs, but it's something that we would love to be able to create. I think more and more of music, it can be a great comfort, and just to like a thing to go through the day, to be able to feel things, if you just manage to do a little bit of that, then you're good.
I think my favorite line on the album comes on Carbon Dioxide when you sing, "Love's carbon dioxide, can't say it out loud, I'm afraid to lose it, their melody is pure music." Some of it got perhaps lost in my vocalization of
No,
it.
no, no. It's. I love voices of people. That is sort of the first thing I think about in a person, how their voice sounds. Yeah, so that's about the voice. Mm.
Love's carbon dioxide. Can't say it out loud. I'm afraid to lose it. Their melody is pure music. Pour yourself out of the sea. Soft as syrup over me.
Is it possible for somebody to make a bad first impression on you if their voice isn't perhaps resonating with you in some way?
Yes. No, I think like it's probably accents then. In Sweden, there's many different accents, and some of them are really, really ugly. I think it's just something that I'm curious about. Like if you're texting with somebody, you're an app or on some app. I think there should be like audio on all apps, so you can like hear them speak.
In that vein, who are some of your favorite singers?
There's so many. I was like my first ones that I really, really loved, that I found out about by myself, was like Prince and Cyndi Lauper. I mean, both of them can like scream very well.
Do you remember the first Prince song that you heard or that really resonated with you?
I think like the Love Sexy album, and like When Doves Cry, and those tracks on that album was probably one of the first I listened to a lot. But also like Alphabet Street and those. I just found it in my attic an old Prince poster that I had in my room when I was like 9, and he's like lying naked on a
On the Flower, the Love Sexy cover?
no, it's some dark black and pink. It's like smoky, and I had it on my wall, and I was like, wow, this is so good. I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
One of the biggest heel turns for me in the album was Even It Out. I feel like it captures so much about how you allude in your manifesto to say that love can transform you in not always very positive ways. So I was wondering, when you created this song that's about the perspective of pursuing somebody who's bullying your children, did it give you a new perspective on what it means to be a parent and what kind of person you can become when you are a parent?
The song is sort of like a revenge. It's something that I have been fantasizing about, because in real life I would never go and like stab a kid, but I wish I had.
That's the
been...
headline for our podcast.
Yes. But I wish but I wish I had been more like thorough with the principal at the school and the teachers, and because we were in like meetings and talking about how how to take care of this, how they were trying to solve this situation, but they never really did. So it ended up that my kid had to change schools. That is something I still feel very bad about. I guess that is something you feel like as a parent, that you're never really doing enough. I mean, so this is a little bit like going back and try to make things right. And I think it's so important to take back your like self-respect when you have been wronged. I think it is a very tricky thing. How do you like overcome a situation like this? When will you ever feel okay about it? Like, it has to be some punishment for a person who behaves like this, for a bully. And I don't think that it didn't really happen.
Do you feel any sort of external pressure from the broad consensus that you are this iconoclast and visionary? Does that perhaps foment in you a bit of pressure to always be unorthodox and to think of very radical solutions to problems like this one, perhaps?
No, I mean, I think of myself as a very, very scared person, because I know I'm afraid of a lot of things. I mean, for this situation, I wish I had been more brave and to dare to speak up. No, but I mean, in Sweden, I don't think the people at my kids' school, for example, I don't think they would even care that I mean, in their world, I am a weird person. There was a lot of like homophobic and transphobic violence going on. And I think they also saw me as a person that was a bit strange and weird and queer, and they didn't want to touch that. That is sort of how it is in Sweden.
When did that start? Or when did it get worse, I guess?
I think it has become worse because, like last year, we got a new government that is backed up by like a neo-fascist party that has its roots in really neo-Nazi movement, and it's like a fifth of the Swedish population who voted for this party. It has affected a lot of things in Sweden, like migration laws and rights for a lot of minorities. That sort of thing is happening all around. I know it's happening in the US, and it's happening in all over Europe as well. It's not a Swedish thing, but I think a lot of people thought that it wouldn't happen here because we have this like proud social democratic history of very democratic society, but that is sort of an image that I think Swedish people probably have believed themselves, but it's not really true. So it has been a great shift, I think.
That was Karin Dreijer talking to the Faders' Jordan Darville. Fever Ray's new album, Radical Romantics, drops this Friday via Rabid Records under exclusive license to Mute for North America. The Fader interview is engineered by Tony Giambroni. The executive producer is Alex Robert Ross, and the associate producer is Raphael Helfand. We'd like to thank Lauten Audio for providing our microphones. You can find them online at lautenaudio.com. And we'd like to thank James Ivey for providing our intro music. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you left a 5-star rating and review. And please keep an eye on thefader.com for essential music news, interviews, and essays. We'll be back soon with another episode of The Fader Interview. Goodbye until then. You know that one song you can't get enough of? Chances are it was made with a sample from Splice. Explore top packs made by your favorite producers, sketch out song ideas in seconds with Create Mode, and dive into a sample catalog that's so deep, it's dangerous. Find out why Splice is the industry's not-so-secret secret. Visit splice.com and try for free today.